He claims that out of every heroine in existence, the one he loves most is smiling right before him. He's surrounded by the very characters he adores. In a world filled with handsome rivals and noble heroes, the name of this game, Engage Hazard, a popular mobile RPG with countless heroines to meet. The path to the throne is simple. Find the world's greatest fiancée, but our boy has been cast in the role of Harold de Howers, the third prince of the powerful de Howers kingdom, known far and wide as the incompetent evil prince. And this is the reality he's woken up to, a realization that dawned on him this very morning. The moment he awoke in this lavish bed, he remembered his past life as Tachibana Haru, a lonely college student, unable to fit in. He sought refuge from his reality, and found it in the world of Engage Hazard. He remembers being completely obsessed with the game, but the character he's become is a villain destined for execution, a fate he absolutely refuses to accept. He's currently 13 years old, which gives him a 3-year head start, and he possesses an unparalleled advantage, complete knowledge of the world of Engage Hazard. With this power, he won't just let fate run its course. He vows to survive and even save another key character from her doom. But his first challenge as a prince is a bit more domestic. He looks at his reflection, utterly mortified by the frilly outfit. His maids, on the other hand, are completely smitten. He can't stand it. In his past life, he only ever wore black. Harold demands a change of clothes immediately. Dressed in a sleek black suit, he's finally satisfied. But the chime of a nearby clock snaps him back to reality. He's late. As he rushes through the halls, a maid stops him. She hands him a handkerchief for the road, but his departure is interrupted by a faint sound. He finds a young girl crying softly in the corner. He instinctively offers her the handkerchief he just received. The girl takes it, looking up at the young prince. Her tears are replaced by a bright, thankful smile. He briefly thinks back to the girl he just met, but a voice urgently calls out his name. He snaps back to attention, realizing he's still late. He pushes open the grand doors to the throne room. Inside, the king greets him with a knowing smile. Harold bows his head, apologizing for his tardiness. But he's not the only guest in the room. A stunning young woman in a black gown greets him. Her name is Alexandria von Chevalier, a powerful noble's daughter, and Harold knows her as one of the main heroines from the game. In the game, she was an early heroine with abysmal stats, known as the Frozen Villainess for her cold and harsh demeanor, a personality that landed her at the bottom of every popularity poll. If her story wasn't completed, she was destined for execution. But despite all that, she was his absolute favorite character. He remembers a single hidden dialogue choice in her route, and the heartbreakingly beautiful expression that completely stole his heart. That's why he's so determined to shed his villainous role and survive, because saving himself means he can finally save her too. But his intense staring has earned him a confused look from the lady herself. The king simply laughs, brushing off Harold's awkwardness. He suggests the two get acquainted over tea in the garden. The scene shifts to a beautiful gazebo, where tea and pastries have been prepared for them, but Alexandria's expression remains as cold as ever. An awkward silence hangs in the air, making Harold sweat. He knows he has to build a connection with her now, or they will both face a terrible future. He finally calls out her name, breaking the silence. He begins with a surprising confession about his own reputation. He admits that he knows this engagement cannot be refused. Alexandria, ever the Ice Queen, asks him to get to the point. He hesitates for a moment, sweating under her intense gaze. Then he makes his bold proposal. He asks her to give him 3 years to become a man worthy of her. The sudden declaration leaves Alexandria utterly speechless. He then drops to his knees, promising to annul the engagement himself if he fails. Talk about a dramatic first impression. It's a desperate gamble, but he knows it's the only way to avoid their bad end. She looks down at the prostrating prince, her expression unreadable. To his complete surprise, she agrees to his terms. But she has one condition, a test of his resolve. A maid named Monica bows in understanding. Moments later, a sword and shield are brought out. Harold is, to put it mildly, completely lost. She explains the simple, terrifying rules of her test. He's to block a single, full-force strike from her. She questions if his grand promise was just empty words. Backed into a corner, he has no choice but to accept. He takes up the gear, his expression grim, and for the first time she offers him a genuine smile. Harold steals his resolve, remembering her simple instruction. He knows winning is impossible, but he vows to block this one strike. Alexandria gives a small, almost imperceptible nod, and without another word, she raises her sword to strike. The blade descends with blinding speed, far faster than he anticipated. The impact sends him reeling, the force of the blow overwhelming him. He's thrown to the ground, the shield knocked from his grasp. Alexandria looks down, her gaze as cold as steel. She stands over him, a silent, imposing figure of judgment. But as Harold looks up, a wave of confusion washes over him. He notices something strange about her eyes. They're glowing red. He realizes the power gap was far greater than he ever knew from the game. But Alexandria simply states that she has witnessed his resolve. Harold, meanwhile, is still trying to process what just happened. And then, for the first time, the frozen villainess gives him a warm, genuine smile. She declares that she will look forward to seeing the man he becomes in 3 years. Overcome with emotion, Harold can only stammer out his thanks. He waves goodbye as her carriage prepares to depart. From the window, she offers one last, gentle smile, and Harold watches as his future fiancée rides off into the distance. Harold smiles to himself, realizing he's cleared the first hurdle. He renews his vow, determined to change his fate in 3 years. Meanwhile, in her carriage, Alexandria lets out a quiet, triumphant laugh. It turns out she's been hoping for this engagement all along. In fact, she was the one who secretly arranged the meeting. Her maid, Monica, gently suggests that she might be going too easy on the prince, but Alexandria dismisses her concerns with a confident wave. The maid, however, still looks unconvinced. She then points out that her lady's face is completely flushed. Caught off guard, the so-called frozen villainess can only hide her embarrassment. Monica adds that even during their duel, her lady was blushing just a little, a fact that Alexandria tries her best to deny. She panics, fearing that if Harold learns her true nature, he'll break the engagement. Her maid scolds her for not being able to act more friendly around the prince. Alexandria flails, insisting that's an unreasonable demand. The lecture continues, with Monica pointing out her lady's notoriously poor social skills. Alexandria can only sulk, admitting she's just not very charming. She's always been told her eyes are cold as ice, earning her the villainous title. Monica then changes the subject, admitting she was surprised Harold blocked the attack. With a proud smile, Alexandria reveals she even used her dragon's gaze in that strike. She explains that he instinctively shifted his shield at the last second to disperse the blow. Monica notes that Harold himself probably didn't even realize he'd done it. Alexandria blushes, thinking he's the only one worthy of her, the one who saved her that day. She clutches the handkerchief he gave her, her mind filled with thoughts of Prince Harold. Meanwhile, back at the royal palace, Harold is already planning his next steps, knowing he's too weak for the game's battle system. He cringes, thinking his wait 3 years speech was maybe a little too dramatic. He begins to analyze his character's stats from the game. Harold has incredibly high defense against magic, but his unique skills are all dark element, a terrible mismatch for his own light attribute. His physical stats are laughably low, but he has a whopping 999 skill points to spend. He knows the potential is there. It's just a matter of how he'll build this new Harold. His first thought is to find a weapon to start training, but his planning is interrupted by a knock at the door. A maid enters, introducing herself as Marion Shearer. She'll be his personal attendant from this day forward. And her expression is less than thrilled about the assignment. Harold is completely stunned. He recognizes her as another heroine from the game. She bows politely, offering her services to the prince. With her introduction complete, she turns to take her leave, but under her breath, she mutters about her terrible luck. Harold watches the door close behind his new, disgruntled maid. He smirks, recalling his reputation as the incompetent prince. In fact, he thinks that being underestimated is actually a huge advantage. His goal is to ignore all other heroines and live peacefully with Alexandria, but he knows that in 3 years, Marion is supposed to be serving someone else. And that's precisely why he can't stand the thought of her suffering under his command. He's remembering a part of the story the game never showed. Harold's past, a childhood spent in the shadow of his brilliant older brothers. He was an outcast, unable to even use the royal family's crest. He desperately tried to catch up, to earn his parents' approval. But no matter what he did, his own mother told him to stop holding his brother back, a memory from his birthday that still shatters his heart. Back in the present, a new day begins. Harold wakes up and asks for a simple wash basin. His new maid, Marion, offers only a silent, cold response. It's been a week, and she's been neglecting her duties the entire time. She thinks he's just another spoiled prince making unreasonable demands. But Harold has found his way to the castle's training grounds. He swings a heavy training sword with all his might. He's been training daily, but doubts if it's enough to get stronger. After all, this world doesn't have a convenient leveling system like the game. He has to raise his stats manually, but with no magic, how can he train his magic power? He wonders if a magical weapon might be the key. In Engage Hazard, high-rarity weapons came with unique skills. If he can find one with a magic skill, he might be able to train his magic stats. But first, he has to deal with his laughably weak physical abilities. He figures that building a solid foundation will be useful down the line, and so, with renewed purpose, he gets back to swinging. But his solitary training is suddenly interrupted. He turns, flustered, to see his maid watching him. Marion smirks, telling him his form is absolutely terrible. A comment that hits him like a bucket to the head, literally. He tries to save face, claiming he was just imitating a novice. She then offers to help the talented prince with his training. Harold recalls the immense power of Alexandria, the game's weakest heroine. He then remembers Marion's lineage. She's from a family of knights with high physical stats. He realizes that training with a heroine might be his ticket to getting stronger. He looks at her, cautiously asking if she's serious about helping him. With a confident smirk, Marion agrees to his request. Harold grits his teeth, putting all his strength into the training sword, but she stops his blade with one hand, unimpressed by the pressure. He pushes harder, screaming that he must overcome this to survive. She simply calls his effort naive, and with a single swift motion, she strikes him down. Harold is sent crashing into the nearby wall. She confirms that his reputation as the incompetent prince is well-deserved. She then asks if he's frustrated, being beaten so easily by a mere maid. Harold can only glare back, utterly humiliated by her words. He knows he's weak, talentless, and without a single skill to his name. But that's the very reason he can't afford to give up now. He refuses to just stand by and watch his life fall apart again. Marion seems amused that he still has some fight left in him. But their training is suddenly interrupted by another maid. She introduces herself as Monica Ashton, his new personal attendant. She offers a polite yet slightly unsettling smile. Harold is stunned. He recognizes her as Alexandria's personal maid. Marion protests, completely blindsided by this new arrangement. But Monica coolly suggests she take it up with the head maid. Marion storms off, vowing to get to the bottom of this. Monica explains that since he's engaged to her lady, she'll be serving him as well. She offers a warm smile, asking him to be in her care from now on. Harold, still dazed from his beatdown, can only stammer out an agreement. She gently takes his hand, a gesture of care he wasn't expecting. He looks up at her, completely baffled by this sudden turn of events. But Marion returns, demanding to know why she's being replaced. The head maid appears, explaining that Marion's disrespect has been fully reported. She's told in no uncertain terms that her services are no longer needed. Defeated, Marion runs off, screaming that he'll regret this. Harold is left speechless by the sudden turn of events. Monica suggests they return to his room to treat his injuries. He's touched, realizing she's the first maid to ever show him such kindness. But her intense dedication is starting to make him a little nervous. Back in his room, Monica leads a frantic search party for something. She's convinced a boy his age must have some special items hidden away. But when the search turns up empty, she vows to check other locations. She declares that she'll find whatever he needs, telling him not to worry. Deciding to just roll with it, Harold formally welcomes her to his service. And Monica returns the sentiment with a warm, reassuring smile. But his quiet life is interrupted by a voice from outside. Harold looks up from his meal, confused. A maid informs him that his older brother, Prince Cartis, has requested his presence for dinner, an invitation that Harold is clearly less than thrilled to receive. He remembers his past self, who desperately tried to win his brother's affection. But Cartis only ever saw him as a pawn, someone to keep by his side for convenience. Knowing it would be a hassle to refuse, Harold reluctantly accepts the invitation. He channels his frustration back into his training, counting each swing. He finally collapses after reaching his 1,000th repetition. It's been some time since he started this grueling routine, but he's determined to see it through. He's frustrated, feeling no closer to the strength he promised Alexandria. But his thoughts are interrupted by a familiar, elegant figure. He looks up to see Alexandria herself, kneeling before his exhausted form. She explains that it's been a month and she came to visit so they wouldn't grow apart. Harold admits he hadn't even considered that, earning a gentle scolding. He mentally kicks himself for being so thoughtless after his grand promise. He can only sweat nervously under her gaze. She tells him there's no point if he doesn't make an effort to close the distance between them. She then recalls that her family's estate is quite far from the capital, and reveals she moved into a city townhouse just to be near him. She says she's always willing to visit if he just calls. The sheer dedication leaves Harold completely flustered. He can't believe she's this interested in him already. He quickly tells himself not to get the wrong idea. She then changes the subject, asking about his sword training. He fumbles for an excuse, blaming it on the nice weather. She knows he's training to be worthy of her, but can't say it. And Harold understands the reason for her harsh words. It's the same feeling he had his entire past life, being seen as talentless, no matter how hard he tried. Harold can only stare back, completely bewildered. She reminds him of his promise, acknowledging that he's been working hard. He admits that since he's talentless, he has to work twice as hard to stand beside her. Alexandria listens to his heartfelt confession without a word. He's stunned when she offers to help him with his training. He tries to refuse, saying he can't ask that of her. She looks down, asking if she's just a hindrance to him. Harold immediately grabs her, insisting that's not it at all. He panics, explaining that he doesn't want to waste her precious time. But his flustered concern brings a small, hidden smile to her lips. She reminds him that, as his fiancée, it's only natural for her to help. Overjoyed, Harold can only stammer out his thanks. His genuine gratitude brings a faint blush to her cheeks, but she quickly gets down to business, suggesting they start immediately. A wave of panic washes over Harold as he realizes what she means. She confidently raises a sword, certain he'll show her even greater strength this time. Harold, however, is not quite on the same page. She tells him to prepare himself for their first training session. He can only scream in protest, realizing he's made a terrible mistake. And so, their friendly sparring session is about to begin. She promises to see him again tomorrow for their next session. Harold brightens up, eagerly awaiting their next meeting. She reminds him that with only 3 years, he can't afford to waste a single day. He panics, realizing only 3 years sounds much shorter than a full 3 years. But he knows that if he doesn't get stronger in this time, the same tragic fate from the game will be his reality. Monica then promises to personally heal his exhausted body by morning, a promise she delivers with a rather intense smile, a level of dedication that even Alexandria finds a bit much. Harold just wants this to be over, remembering he's late for dinner with his brother. Alexandria asks why she wasn't informed about this dinner. Monica cheerfully explains that's because she wasn't invited. Alexandria argues that as his fiancée, she should be allowed to go, a suggestion that Monica immediately and firmly shuts down, leaving the frozen villainess to sulk like a child. The argument is cut short as Harold is called to attention. Alexandria points, demanding a full report on the dinner tomorrow. Monica practically shoves him out the door, telling him to hurry up. He arrives at his brother's chambers, announcing his presence, and immediately offers a deep apology for his tardiness. His brother greets him with a cool, knowing smile. This is Cartis de Howers, the second prince of the kingdom. In the game, Harold relentlessly bullied his other brother, Wilfred. But now Wilfred is bowing, offering congratulations on his engagement. He even offers a genuine smile, wishing Harold happiness. Harold is completely floored. This was never supposed to happen. He wonders if he somehow triggered a secret route. Then he notices Marion standing behind his brother. He finally understands why she was so furious with him. Wilfred, the abandoned prince, was treated even worse than Harold. He realizes that despite her desperate situation, Marion seems almost happy. Her attitude towards Wilfred is a complete 180 from how she treated him. Of course, the heroine is drawn to the protagonist. Wilfred then decides he must thank Marion for her service. He explains that with Harold's help, she was able to become his personal maid, and she blushes, honored to serve her true master. Harold watches them leave, realizing he has no chance of competing with the game's actual hero. Some guys have all the luck. The scene shifts back to the training grounds. Harold is completely exhausted, still reeling from the events of the dinner. Alexandria, however, is lecturing him for being too lenient with his brother and the disrespectful maid, but she quickly decides that what's more important is for him to get stronger for their engagement. She continues her speech, but Harold just waves her angelic nagging away. He collapses, wishing he could just pay to win like in the game. Alexandria suggests that to get stronger, he must first find a suitable weapon. He knows the original Harold was a spear user, but he's decided his weapon will be a shield, a choice that leaves his fiancée a little confused. He explains that he's been considering this for the past month. In the game, shields were perfect for characters with his exact stat distribution. But the number one reason he chose it is because it's what he used to block her attack, earning her praise. She smiles, agreeing it's a wonderful choice for the man who will become her iron wall. But she quietly disagrees with his self-deprecation. She takes his hands, vowing to personally make him strong. With that, she declares their break is over and it's time to train. Harold is absolutely ecstatic at the prospect. He collapses to the ground, barely able to thank her. The first session leaves him completely and utterly drained. 3 months later, she notes that he's improved significantly. His daily training has been nothing short of hellish. A light jog, really, but he's still frustrated, unable to block even a fraction of her power. She simply smiles, telling him to have more confidence in himself. Monica chimes in, boasting that she's the only one who can block even a fraction of her lady's power. A revelation that completely crushes Harold's spirit. He then worries that all this training is causing him to neglect his studies. But he scoffs, remembering he was a college student in his past life. Seeing his resolve, Alexandria seems to have an idea. As the day's brutal training session comes to an end, Harold is completely spent. Alexandria announces that she's going to go get changed, a statement that suddenly makes Harold notice something. Her training attire is a little more revealing than he'd realized, and Monica appears, whispering some very unhelpful suggestions into his ear. Harold stammers, completely flustered by the maid's words. Monica just smiles, claiming she saw nothing. Some people just want to watch the world burn. Later, the three of them sit down for tea. Harold explains that he wants a shield that is truly worthy of him. Alexandria asks what he means by that. He declares that he's chosen the jet-black shield Casper, a name that leaves both women completely stunned. They explain it's a legendary item that would be impossible for him to obtain, but Harold insists that it's the only shield he'll accept. After all, it's the highest rarity shield his dark attribute can even use. He explains that the shield is a drop from a mid-boss called the Casperling, a boss with a powerful, unique skill that can instantly defeat its opponents. He knows he can't win without their help, but hates asking them to face such danger. But Alexandria cuts him off, shouting that she's just worried about him. Her sudden heartfelt concern leaves Harold speechless. She immediately turns away, embarrassed by her own outburst. With a sigh, she agrees to help, but only if he follows her instructions. Harold is overjoyed, readily agreeing to her conditions. And so, the trio arrives on the shores of the fabled Moon Island. Alexandria takes the lead, confidently declaring that this is her territory now. But their path is blocked by a small, spiky black cat. Harold wonders if this could be the Casperling he's looking for. The cat is furious, demanding they take its threats seriously. But Harold simply scoops up the flailing creature with one hand. He holds it up, asking if this is really the legendary boss. With a smug wink, the cat confirms that it is indeed the Casperling. A revelation that leaves both Alexandria and Monica completely dumbfounded. The creature boasts about its reputation as a cool and powerful beast. It then asks if they're familiar with the jet-black shield, and offers to share some information for a price. The cat threatens to tear the prince to shreds for his insolence, but Harold simply refuses its offer. The Casperling is shocked, asking if he even wants the shield. Harold admits that he does, but he's not about to be extorted. He knows that despite its appearance, this beast is notoriously dangerous, and if it's asking for help, it must be facing an unbeatable opponent. He decides he has no time to get involved in its troubles. But his companions call out to him. Alexandria and Monica suggest they at least hear the creature out. Harold reluctantly agrees, vowing to retreat if the foe is too strong. The Casperling explains that its enemy is just ahead. It's a massive, pale beast with a crudely stitched snout. This is Henwin, a fallen divine beast and a powerful raid boss. Alexandria immediately orders Harold to retreat. This is way out of their league. But the Casperling grits its teeth, determined to fight. It lunges forward, screaming that it will avenge its mother. But its attack barely scratches the raid boss's thick hide. Harold realizes his plan is ruined if he abandons the cat. But he recalls a hidden secret. The shield itself isn't the real prize. The defeated cat thinks it should have just given up from the start. But Harold steps forward, planting himself between the cat and the beast. Alexandria and Monica immediately leap into the fray, their coordinated assault catching the monster off guard. Monica lands a powerful kick, her movements swift and precise. Alexandria scolds him, calling his bravery reckless, but she admits that she finds his helpless kindness endearing. The Ice Queen is melting, folks. The sudden praise leaves Harold flustered, much to Monica's amusement. The Casperling looks up, touched by their intervention. With a grin, Harold declares that they'll take down the beast together. Overcome with emotion, the little creature can only nod in agreement. With the Casperling on his shoulder, Harold declares it's their turn now. He charges forward, shield raised to meet the beast's heavy blow. But after months of training against Alexandria's relentless assault, the monster's attack feels almost sluggish in comparison. He just needs to block this one strike to create an opening. Alexandria and Monica easily outmaneuver the beast, calling it slow. The monster roars, stunned by their coordinated attack. It turns its full attention back to Harold, unleashing its fury. The prince is sent flying, the force of the blow overwhelming him. His companions can only cry out his name in shock. Alexandria rushes to his side as Harold admits this is his limit. He knows he can't endure these hits without the jet-black shield. The Casperling looks down at the fallen prince. It quietly calls out to the human who saved it. The little creature looks down, filled with guilt. But Harold simply gives it a reassuring pat on the head. He introduces himself properly, telling the cat his name is Harold. He then asks where he can find the legendary shield. Meanwhile, Monica holds the line against the beast's assault. Harold looks on, confident that with that they can defeat Henwin. The Casperling hesitates, filled with doubt. But Harold calls out its name, his voice firm. The creature finally agrees, vowing to trust him. A sudden surge of dark energy surrounds the prince. It materializes into the form of a shield. Harold can only stare, completely stunned. He realizes the legendary shield is the size of a smartphone. The cat explains that as a child, this is all the power it can muster. Harold finally understands its earlier reluctance. But the Casperling seems confused, asking what mana even is. He recalls the game's stat system, which never had a mana stat. The Casperling is completely baffled by his ignorance. Alexandria calls out his name, sensing his confusion. She explains that mana is the very source of life in this world. And suddenly, everything starts to make sense for Harold. He realizes that what the game called SP is actually mana. With a newfound confidence, he turns back to the little creature. He asks if it's possible for it to receive mana from another person. The Casperling confirms that it can, in fact, take mana from humans. But it warns that the amount needed to grow would be immense. Harold smirks, asking if the little beast is worried about him. The Casperling immediately denies it, flustered by the accusation. He tells it to take all the mana it needs without hesitation. The creature is stunned, reminding him of the immense danger. But Harold just shouts its name, urging it to hurry. The cat finally relents, reaching out to begin the transfer. Meanwhile, Monica clicks her tongue in annoyance as she holds back the beast. Alexandria watches with concern as her maid battles the monster alone. She glances back, impatiently asking if they're ready yet. She braces herself, blocking another powerful blow from Henwin. Monica grits her teeth, straining to hold back the monster's assault. She and Alexandria stand firm, waiting for their moment. Harold screams that he won't let the beast harm the people he cares about. A brilliant flash of dark energy erupts from his hand. The jet-black shield is now fully formed, and he asks if his companions are all right. He declares that he'll block Henwin's attacks, telling them to finish it. Alexandria and Monica confidently agree to his plan. The divine beast roars, enraged by their defiance. Harold looks at his new weapon, completely amazed by its power. He recalls a key game mechanic. Unlike shields, other weapons add their stats to the user. He remembers that a shield's defense is added directly to the user's stats. And with his matching attribute, that power is doubled, making him a true fortress. Meanwhile, Alexandria and Monica continue to press their attack against the beast. But Henwin begins to gather energy for a devastating counter. Harold's eyes widen in recognition of the attack. He screams for the others to get behind him now. The divine beast unleashes a massive torrent of energy from its maw, a devastating attack known as the Tyrant's Breath. But Harold stands firm, taking the full force of the blast head-on. He digs his heels into the earth, refusing to be moved an inch. He screams that he will protect them both, bracing himself against the overwhelming force. His companions can only watch in awe from behind him. He has become their unbreakable wall. The legendary shield begins to crack under the immense strain. But when the light finally fades, he's still standing, having endured it all. Alexandria offers a smile, praising his magnificent defense. She tells him to leave the rest to her now. A fierce smile crosses her face as she prepares to finish the fight. But Harold can only stare, noticing something strange about her eyes. With a chilling smile, she declares it's time for punishment. She leaps forward, swinging her blade at the massive beast. A single, clean strike leaves a devastating wound. The divine beast collapses, its life force draining away. The Casperling declares that now is the time to avenge its mother. It tells Harold that the power to do so lies within him. A dark energy erupts from Harold's hand, the skill Snatch activating. This is the shield's unique ability, which steals everything from its target. The skill drains the very life from the fallen raid boss. With the battle over, Harold reaches out to his small companion. With the battle won, he looks down at his new companion. The Casperling quietly whispers that it has finally avenged its mother. Harold turns back to the group with a triumphant smirk. But the little creature reminds him of their promise. It then tries to play dumb, feigning ignorance about their deal. Harold points out that without his mana, it can't maintain its form. He leans in with a confident grin, ready to seal the deal. He laments that he thought he'd finally found the perfect partner. The Casperling is stunned as Harold asks who else it could be. He declares that together they can both become much stronger. The little creature is completely flustered by the offer. It tries to play it cool, saying Harold would be lost without it. With a wink, it finally agrees to be his partner. And with a fist bump, the pact is officially sealed. Meanwhile, Alexandria watches the scene with a hidden smile. She turns to her maid, gushing about Harold's heroic display. Monica, ever the realist, points out that her lady could have won instantly. A detail Alexandria would rather her maid not bring up, but she admits that Harold's defense against the final blow was impressive. Alexandria beams with pride, amazed he held his own against such a powerful foe. Monica can only sigh at her lady's enthusiasm. She notes that while Harold's feat was impressive, Alexandria's persistence is something else entirely. But Alexandria is lost in her own world, gushing over the bond between Harold and his new partner. Monica reminds her that she was acting much more reserved just a moment ago. But Alexandria is too busy being jealous of a cat. She clutches the handkerchief he gave her so long ago, remembering that it's been 7 years since he first saved her. The story flashes back to the De Howers' kingdom, a nation blessed by a powerful dragon, a blessing shared by both the royal family and the House of Chevalier. But with the passage of time, the truth of that blessing has been lost to all but a few. Among them, the House of Chevalier, whose only daughter was said to possess the true dragon, to offer a handkerchief bearing the dragon's crest to this lady, and for her to accept it, was to seal a pact between them. But Monica knows this is all in her lady's head. The prince likely doesn't even remember. Alexandria simply smiles, saying that's perfectly fine with her. It took her 6 long years to reach this point, but now she can finally protect him. In the Chevalier family, where strength is justice, only the strongest is granted the divine dragon sword, a right that not even her father or brother could deny her. And Monica can only marvel at the 6 years of effort her lady has put in for this one goal. But Alexandria worries that once Harold's true power is known, he'll attract all sorts of unwanted attention. She confirms that's why she placed Monica by his side, a task the loyal maid readily accepts. She vows to protect him with her life, just as her lady taught her, all for the sake of the prince she has sworn to serve. Back in the present, the mood is a little lighter. The Casperling is enjoying the royal treatment, marveling at the food. It seems the two have decided on nicknames for each other. Harold is now Haru, and the Casperling is Cass. Aw, how cute. But Alexandria is anything but happy. She's furious that a cat got a nickname from Harold before she did. The nerve. He suggests Sandra for her, while Monica tries not to laugh. Harold, however, is just thrilled they're on a nickname basis now. Later, as Harold feeds his new partner, Monica approaches with some rather serious news. They've received an invitation to a party from the Marshall family, a revelation that sends Harold into a full-blown panic. Monica explains that the Marshalls are a ducal house founded by a former prince, which means refusing their invitation would be a grave insult. He remembers that the Marshal's eldest daughter is another heroine from the game, and the thought of facing his brother again sends him into a panic. But Alexandria reveals that she's been invited as well. She's excited, realizing they want to meet their future in-laws. Harold realizes it's a chance to gauge his new family members. He turns to Alexandria, asking what she wants to do. She agrees, wanting to see what kind of person Frederica is. He considers her words, a plan forming in his mind, which means he'll have to formally escort her to the party, a thought that brings a shy blush to Alexandria's face. He steels himself, knowing he has no other choice. He stammers, trying to ask if she'd like to go with him. He mentally berates himself for his complete lack of social skills. But Alexandria grabs his hands, eagerly accepting his clumsy invitation. With that settled, Monica takes her leave for the day. The day of the party arrives, and Harold is dressed to the nines, but still full of anxiety. He waits by the carriage, ready to escort his fiancée. But the sight that greets him leaves him utterly speechless. Alexandria appears in a stunning gown, thanking him for coming. He's so overwhelmed by her beauty that his brain completely short-circuits. First dates are rough, even for royalty. The carriage ride is filled with a palpable, steamy awkwardness. But Harold finally musters his courage, pulling out a small gift. He offers it to her as a memento of their evening together. She asks if she can open it, and he eagerly agrees. Inside is an ornate hair accessory, crafted in the shape of a dragon. Alexandria is completely taken aback by the beautiful gift. He shyly explains that its color reminded him of her eyes. Our boy's got game. Overcome with emotion, she can only hide her blushing face. She places it in her hair, turning to ask if it suits her. With a bright smile, he assures her it looks absolutely perfect. She holds the gift close, thanking him for such a beautiful present. He can only stare, wondering if she truly likes it. He remembers Monica's less than helpful advice on gift-giving, but he knows that despite his reputation as the incompetent prince, she has accepted him for who he is. He can't help but wonder why she's so dedicated to him. But their quiet moment is interrupted as the carriage comes to a stop. He offers her his hand, helping her from the carriage. Inside, the grand hall is bustling with guests, and their arrival has already started to draw some unwanted attention. Harold spots Wilfred and Marion, wondering why they're here. Alexandria notices his sudden change in demeanor. He tells her not to worry, assuring her he'll handle everything. But their attention is stolen by a grand fanfare. Prince Cartis makes his entrance with the host, Frederica Marshall. Harold recognizes her as another heroine, noting her stunning appearance. Alexandria teases him about his taste, sending Harold into a flustered denial. A little jealousy goes a long way. Frederica herself approaches them with a graceful welcome. Harold manages to thank her for the invitation. While Frederica expresses her delight at meeting Alexandria, Alexandria confirms their engagement to the curious hostess. She asks if Frederica is aware of their recent engagement. Frederica smiles, saying she's heard Harold is a wonderful match. She then leans in, her tone shifting ominously. She confesses that his rude reputation makes her want to be mean to him. Yikes. She quickly changes the subject, saying she must greet her other guests. Alexandria, completely rattled, excuses herself and hurries away. Harold is left confused, wondering what just happened. But his confusion is interrupted by a familiar voice. Wilfred approaches with Marion, asking what business they have here. Harold waves him off, telling him not to mind them and to enjoy the party. But Wilfred presses on, asking if he isn't curious why he's here. Harold quickly denies any interest, trying to avoid the conversation. He grabs Alexandria's arm, attempting to make a hasty retreat. The move leaves both Wilfred and Marion completely dumbfounded. Alexandria then apologizes, saying she needs to step away for a moment. Harold just smiles, telling her to take her time. But as she leaves, he notices her mood has soured since Wilfred appeared. He knows she's always been hard to read, but he has a bad feeling. He wonders if, just like in the game, she's actually in love with Wilfred. But his thoughts are interrupted by his older brother, Cartis. He asks Harold if he's enjoying the party, clearly amused by his presence. But his tone shifts as he asks if Harold knows why Wilfred is here. Harold clenches his fist, trying to hide his growing unease. He forces a smile, pretending not to be surprised by the question. Cartis then reveals that the king himself asked him to take Marion into his faction, a revelation that leaves Harold completely speechless. He explains that the king was worried about Wilfred's precarious position in the palace, but he couldn't openly help his son because of the queen's influence. So Cartis stepped in, taking Marion under his protection to shield them both. Cartis explains this party was just a pretense to tell him all this. He was surprised Harold even came, assuming he'd refuse out of spite. He then tells Harold to look after their other brother from now on, and with a casual wave, Cartis takes his leave, leaving Harold stunned. He snapped back to reality by a familiar voice calling his name. Alexandria has returned, asking him what's wrong. She can see he's deep in thought, wondering what's on his mind. Harold realizes that taking Wilfred in was a huge political risk for Cartis. Yet, his brother seemed to be enjoying the whole situation. He concludes that Cartis must have struck some kind of deal with the king. Alexandria then asks him how he plans to interact with Wilfred from now on. Harold's answer is simple: he won't. He declares that he wants nothing to do with his brothers ever again. He's convinced this is just jealousy, since she's supposed to love the game's hero, and he decides that keeping her away from Wilfred is his only option. But Alexandria just smiles, seemingly accepting his decision. Her calm reaction completely throws him off, and he asks if she has feelings for Wilfred. He's desperate to know what the other prince means to her. But her expression shifts to one of pure, unadulterated rage. She declares that Wilfred is nothing but scum. She recognizes the look in his eyes. It's the same one Harold had in the game, right before he was condemned by the hero. But why? She asks if he remembers what happened 7 years ago. Harold is once again completely lost. She confesses that on that day he saved her, body and soul. She asks if he will finally listen to her side of the story. The scene shifts, taking us 7 years into the past. A younger Alexandria was a frail child, confined to her room. Her only escape was through books, dreaming of fairy tale romances. But one day, a man tells her she must go to the royal palace. Her father explained that the king had chosen her as a fiancé candidate. The news seemed to weigh heavily on the young girl. But then, a small, hopeful smile spread across her face. She admits that back then, she was just excited to meet a real prince. But her excitement faded when she saw the clothes prepared for her. Her maid, a much younger Monica, confirmed it was her father's command. She couldn't understand why she was being dressed as a boy to meet a prince. She now understands her father's plan, to make her so unappealing that none of the princes would ever choose her. And so, she entered the grand throne room for the very first time. She was completely mesmerized by the palace's dazzling interior. Wanting to see more, she slipped away from her father's side. Feeling like the hero of her own story, she ventured deeper into the halls. But the long, empty corridors began to feel unsettling. A wave of anxiety washed over her, and she froze in place. She collapsed to the floor, lost and utterly terrified. That's when she heard a voice looking up in surprise. A young boy stood before her, wondering what another boy was doing there. Tears welled in her eyes as she struggled to find her voice. The boy quickly put two and two together, realizing she was lost. He offers his hand, saying he'll show her the way. She looks up, hesitant to accept his help. But she quickly shakes her head, refusing his gesture. She insists through her tears that she can stand on her own. The boy simply watches her, a thoughtful look on his face. He then asks for her name, and she stammers in response. She introduces herself simply as Alex. He gives a quiet, acknowledging nod, but then he turns to leave, and she calls out for him to wait. He stops, telling her his name is Harold. He introduces himself as Harold de Howers, the third prince of the kingdom. She follows him as he searches the halls, growing more anxious with every passing moment. She glances over, realizing they might be even more lost than before, a suspicion that only grows stronger with each step. She finally tugs on his sleeve, asking if he's sure about the way. He confidently explains that the king always uses a room up ahead, so they should be close, though his sense of direction is clearly a work in progress. But a sudden sound makes him stop in his tracks. He turns to her with a knowing, confident smile. He grabs her hand, pulling her along with newfound purpose. They stop before a grand door, and he tells her this is it. With a gentle smile, he encourages her to go inside. Her face lights up, her anxiety replaced with pure relief. She throws the door open, calling out for her father. But the room beyond is completely empty. Her hopeful expression shatters into disbelief. She turns back, calling out for Prince Harold in confusion. But she's met only with cruel laughter and taunts, telling her to blame the one who led her here. Harold. A young boy with a cruel smile watches from a distance. Alexandria collapses against the door, realizing she's been deceived. She cries out in frustration, regretting her decision to wander off. Kneeling in the empty room, her despair is absolute. But then she notices something in the corner of her eye. She calls out desperately, begging for anyone to help her. But her pleas are met with only silence. Defeated, she sinks back to the floor, lost and alone. She begins to lose hope, wondering if this is the end. But her despair is interrupted by a knock at the door. A small face peeks through the window, asking if anyone's inside. She rushes to the door, pleading for help and explaining she's been locked in. Harold panics, telling her to just wait a moment. He shouts for her to get back from the door, and she quickly obeys. A loud crash echoes through the empty room. She watches in shock as the door begins to shake violently. Through the window, she sees Harold throwing himself against the door. She can only kneel and watch, her hope returning. The door finally bursts open, and he asks if she's all right. Overcome with relief, she throws herself into his arms. She cries into his chest, telling him how scared she was. He holds her, apologizing for not coming to her rescue sooner. After a moment, he asks if she's finally calmed down. He then offers her a handkerchief, telling her not to cry anymore. She takes it, her voice barely a whisper as she thanks him. He asks her what happened, wanting to understand the full story. And so, she explains everything that led to her being trapped. Harold listens intently, his expression growing grim. She tells him the culprit's final words were to blame it all on him. The young prince is left completely stunned by the betrayal. She asks if he knows who was behind this cruel prank. Harold hesitates, struggling to find the right words. He warns her that the truth might be a bit of a shock. He reveals that the culprit's name is also Harold. Alexandria can only stare, completely stunned by the revelation. But their conversation is cut short as a heavy crate tips over. It comes crashing down right where they're standing. Alexandria looks up, dazed but completely unharmed. She sees Harold shielding her, asking why he'd protect her. Her eyes widen in horror as she sees the blood on his head. He smiles through the pain, trying to assure her that he's all right. But from a distance, another boy watches the scene unfold. A cruel, satisfied smirk spreads across his face. Alexandria can only look on in horror at the injured prince. Just then, her father's voice calls out her name in panic. She turns, desperately pleading with him to save the boy who protected her. Her father takes in the scene, his expression hardening with understanding. With a grunt of effort, he lifts the heavy crate off the young prince. He kneels beside them, asking if they're both okay. But Harold simply waves a weak goodbye, saying he has to go. She's stunned that he'd try to leave after being so badly hurt. Her father holds her back, stopping her from following the prince. He tells her to let Harold go, his expression unreadable. She looks up at him, desperately asking why. He can only shake his head, and she lowers hers in defeat. He places a comforting hand on her shoulder in the empty room. She clutches the handkerchief, a memento of the boy who saved her. Back in the present, she continues her story. She explains that she later learned of Harold's difficult position in the palace, and that he didn't possess the royal family's crest, making him an outcast. She explains that no one ever tried to see the real Harold. The real Harold, she says, was a kind, talented boy, even with his face covered in grime. She was so frustrated that she couldn't do anything for him, and that's why she dedicated herself to becoming strong enough to stand by the side of the boy who saved her. Harold is completely overcome, tears welling in his eyes. She remembers declaring to her family that Harold was no incompetent prince. She holds his hands, telling him he is the irreplaceable person who saved her, and with a bright, tearful smile, she says she's truly happy to be his fiancée. Harold is completely overwhelmed, his emotions spilling over. He buries his face in her shoulder, letting out all his pent-up feelings. He finally understands that she's the one person who always saw him for who he truly was. He quickly pulls back, trying to regain his composure. But Alexandria just offers a warm, knowing smile. Harold is a flustered mess, completely out of his element. She then calls him by a new name, Haru, a nickname that leaves our boy completely stunned. Her gentle demeanor vanishes, replaced by pure rage as she thinks of Wilfred. She declares that she'll be the one to defeat him, all for Harold's sake. He realizes that in the original story, he never had any connection to Wilfred, and he decides it's best to keep it that way, avoiding him entirely. Alexandria agrees, insisting he has no need to deal with his brother. But she adds one small condition. If the time comes to punish Wilfred, she wants the honor of doing it herself. Our boy can only agree to think about it, clearly not ready for that level of commitment. He takes her hand, suggesting they return to the party. He offers a quiet, heartfelt thanks for her unwavering support. She squeezes his hand tightly as they walk back inside. Their return to the grand hall immediately draws the attention of the other guests. Harold suggests they've fulfilled their social duties and can leave, but Alexandria firmly states that it's far too early to go. He stammers, asking if she'd like to come back to the palace with him, an idea she eagerly accepts, promising to return shortly. He panics, realizing they should say goodbye, but she's already gone. His attention is then drawn to a group across the room. He sees his brothers laughing with Frederica and Marion. The sight leaves him a little confused. He notes that for supposed rivals, they seem to be getting along just fine. But Frederica's thoughts are clearly focused on one person, Haru. Alexandria playfully scolds him for his sour expression now that the party is over. Harold is surprised, not realizing how much his mood was showing. She explains his intense glare was scaring the other guests, and he can only apologize. She then gently takes his hand, realizing he was angry on her behalf after hearing her story. Harold is flustered, trying to deny it, but she's seen right through him. A small, knowing smile plays on her lips. She tells him to cheer up as they walk, but Harold seems surprised by her sudden change in pace. He calls out her name and she turns back with a questioning look. He asks if she's really planning on going home already, but their conversation is interrupted by a handsome, smiling stranger. A sight that sends Harold into a full-blown panic, his brain still short-circuiting from Alexandria's cuteness. But Alexandria greets the man warmly, calling him her older brother, a revelation that leaves Harold completely and utterly stunned. He stammers, trying to introduce himself as her fiancé. The man introduces himself as Cedric, Alexandria's brother. He offers a handshake, which Harold nervously accepts. But the friendly gesture is a bone-crushing test of strength. Alexandria asks her brother what he's doing at the party. He explains that he was also invited by Prince Cartis. Cedric explains he came just to see the man his sister was with. A sudden, horrifying realization dawns on Harold. He remembers Cedric from the game, an obsessive, meddling brother. He quickly tries to pull Alexandria away from her brother's grasp. Cedric complains that it's been too long since they've seen each other, but Alexandria coldly dismisses him, saying she has no business with him. He reminds her that as the future head of the family, she might need him, but her only request is for him to leave them both alone. He realizes that the engagement of the Chevalier family's eldest daughter will inevitably have an impact on the royal succession. Harold realizes that to survive in the palace, he needs the full backing of the Chevalier family, but he wonders why his brothers are making their move now. He recalls Cartis already making a deal with Cedric, asking for his support in the coming power struggle. Cedric claims he'd do anything for his beloved sister, an offer that Alexandria immediately tries to refuse. She turns to Harold, asking for his decision. Harold knows that to survive in this world, he needs powerful allies, and so he reluctantly agrees to accept Cedric's help. He thinks that if bowing his head can save them both, it's a small price to pay. After all, his petty pride vanished a long time ago. Cedric agrees to lend his power, but he has one condition. He points out Harold's abysmal reputation as the incompetent prince. He asks if those rumors are just a reflection of Harold's true self. But Alexandria immediately leaps to his defense, furious at her brother's insults. Harold realizes this is just a test to see if he's worthy of her. He recognizes this immediately, It's a duel event from Engage Hazard. Cedric declares that if Harold wins, he will formally approve of their relationship. But our boy knows that Cedric is an event boss with stats far beyond any heroine. Harold sweats, wondering if he even stands a chance against Cedric. Alexandria calls out his name, her voice filled with concern. She insists he has no reason to fight her brother. She declares that she will provide all the support he needs. A statement that leaves her brother completely flustered. But Harold cuts them off, saying he understands the situation. He just has to prove that he is a man worthy of her. His sudden resolve leaves Alexandria completely stunned. Cedric, however, smiles, eagerly accepting the challenge. The two men face off, ready to cross swords. Cedric sets the terms. A duel in 1 month's time. But Harold accepts without a moment's hesitation, a decision that leaves Alexandria completely stunned. With a smug smile, Cedric says he'll be looking forward to it. He turns and leaves, his challenge hanging in the air. Alexandria immediately warns Harold that victory is nearly impossible. He looks back at her, admitting he already knows that. She asks why he would accept, telling him to just ignore her brother's taunts. But Harold's expression is firm. He can't do that. Because he knows this is a fight he cannot afford to run from. He knows he must take the hero's place to be with her and avoid their tragic fate. Because he wants to see the happy future they can build together. Alexandria looks at him, her expression filled with worry. She calls him a fool for accepting, and he can only agree. Back at the training grounds, he offers his thanks. He's completely drained, with Cass trying to cheer him up. Alexandria and Monica look down, assessing his progress. They both agree that he's likely hit his physical limit. Harold realizes this means his physical stats are completely maxed out. So Alexandria suggests they shift his training to focus on technique. Cass realizes this is the perfect opportunity to move to the next step. Alexandria and Monica look on, curious about this new development. Harold then makes a nervous proposal for their future training. Alexandria asks him to explain what he has in mind. He declares that from now on, during their sparring sessions, he wants to use the power of the Casperling. He knows it's his only option, since he can't use any skills on his own. He turns to his partner with a determined grin. He asks if Cass will help him with this special training. The little creature leaps onto his shoulder, eagerly accepting the challenge. Cass proudly declares its new role as Haru's official partner. Alexandria agrees, seeing it as the perfect way to get him used to the shield. She then offers a rather intense smile, vowing to personally forge him into a powerful warrior. And so, a new, even more brutal training regimen begins. The days pass, with Alexandria and Monica seeing him off after each session. Harold waves a cheerful goodbye, promising to see them again tomorrow. But Alexandria gets uncomfortably close, her intensity on full display. She promises to be there for him no matter what, her dedication unwavering. He and Monica watch as her carriage rides off into the distance. With the day's training over, Harold suggests they head back to his room. But his thoughts are cut short by a familiar voice. He and Monica stop in their tracks. It's Wilfred and Marion blocking their path. Wilfred asks with a smug smile if his future sister-in-law is leaving so soon. Harold tells him it's none of his business and tries to walk away. He glances back, clearly not in the mood for this conversation. Marion then proudly announces that she's been accepted as Prince Cartis's right hand, a fact that Wilfred seems particularly pleased about. Harold just sighs, saying that's great for them. But Wilfred's smile fades, saying he has no interest in Harold's opinion anyway. Wilfred taunts him, saying he used to boast about being Cartis's right hand, but he reveals that Cartis never once considered Harold for that role. Harold and Monica can only stare, wondering if this guy has anything better to do. Wilfred declares that he will now lead the faction and support their brother. But Harold has heard enough. He announces that he's leaving his brother's faction entirely. Wilfred just laughs, asking if he really thinks that's allowed. Harold fires back, questioning if Wilfred has any right to make that call. The sudden defiance leaves both Wilfred and Marion completely stunned. As he walks away, Harold can't help but think Wilfred sounds just like a protagonist. Wilfred scoffs, saying this is just like the old Harold who betrayed him. He argues that as Cartis's new right hand, he can't have Harold making a scene. He tells his brother to stop trying to drag him down. But Harold just smirks, realizing Wilfred needs a loser to look good by comparison. He reminds him that everyone already thinks he's the incompetent prince, so who cares? With a final wave, he declares he's leaving. The move leaves both Wilfred and Marion completely speechless. Wilfred can only grit his teeth, furious at the incompetent prince's defiance. Monica offers to take care of them, but Harold tells her to calm down. And so his joint training with Cass began in earnest. Monica unleashes a powerful downward strike. The force of the blow sends Harold crashing into the wall. The jet-black shield shatters under the immense pressure. She follows up with a relentless flurry of attacks. Harold can only watch, a dawning horror in his eyes. But Alexandria steps in, ready to take her turn. The scene shifts back to the royal training grounds. Harold is left completely drained, his partner trying to console him. Alexandria looks down, asking if he's already given up, but he clenches his fist, refusing to back down. He grins through the pain, declaring he's not done yet. Alexandria simply smiles, approving of his tenacity. She vows to personally ensure he defeats her brother, a promise that terrifies Harold more than any training session. The day of the duel finally approaches, and the group sets off by carriage for the Chevalier estate. Inside, Harold, Monica, and Cass look on with anticipation. Their destination is a grand, sprawling mansion. Cass looks out the window, buzzing with excitement for the coming fight, and Harold can't help but agree, a nervous smile on his face. He reflects on the past month, knowing today is the day of his duel with Cedric. His nervous thoughts are interrupted by Monica's voice. She offers a reassuring smile, telling him not to worry. She reminds him that after a month of training, he's the only one who can block her lady's attacks. But Harold finds that very hard to believe. Monica pows, chiding him for doubting her heartfelt encouragement. He admits that he doesn't feel any stronger at all. He recalls the brutal training, where he could only block a fraction of Alexandria's power. He sighs, finally relenting to her words. She then leans in, offering a very personal reward for his victory, a reward that Harold immediately and vehemently rejects. The carriage finally arrives at the Grand Chevalier estate. Alexandria is already there to greet him, looking absolutely radiant. She takes his hand, welcoming him to her home. With a gentle smile, she leads him toward the entrance. Harold and Cass can only stare in awe at the sheer scale of the mansion. Alexandria opens the grand doors, inviting him inside, and waiting for them is none other than her brother, Cedric. He offers a hand, ready to begin their formal duel. Harold accepts, only to feel a bone-crushing grip. Harold struggles against the crushing force, realizing the test has already begun. Cedric smiles, suggesting they get right to the duel, but Alexandria steps in, scolding her brother for his impatience. He laughs awkwardly, agreeing to let his guest rest first. Later, Cass is enjoying some of the finest food the estate has to offer. Harold sits awkwardly between his fiancée and her maid, under Cedric's watchful eye. Cedric then remembers they haven't set the rules for the duel yet, a detail that catches both Harold and Alexandria by surprise. He declares the match should be one worthy of both the prince and Sandra, a nickname that makes Alexandria visibly cringe. Cedric explains this duel is simply to see if Harold is a man worthy of his sister. He wants to witness the prince's resolve and his feelings for Alexandria. Harold asks him to get to the point and state the conditions. Cedric declares that if Harold wins, he will bless their union and offer his full support. But of course, there's a catch. If Harold loses, he must personally ask the king to annul the engagement. Alexandria is furious, offering to fight her brother in Harold's place, a suggestion that sends Cedric into a full-blown panic, as it would defeat the whole point. But Harold steps forward, calmly accepting the high-stakes condition. Alexandria turns to him, her eyes filled with worry, asking if he's sure. He takes her hand, a confident smile on his face. He tells her that he endured a month of hellish training for this very moment, and no matter the conditions, he absolutely refuses to lose. His resolve brings a proud, knowing smile to her face, but inwardly, he admits he's terrified, knowing he's the weakest character in the game. He knows that against an opponent as strong as a heroine, his chances are slim. But even so, he knows he has no other choice. Cedric smiles, pleased by his answer, and agrees to begin. The scene shifts to the estate's grand courtyard. Cedric explains once more that he simply wants to witness the prince's resolve. Cedric declares that this will be a serious duel, revealing his weapon. Harold's eyes widen as he immediately recognizes the blade. It's Cedric's personal weapon, the legendary Crimson Lotus sword, a blade known for its top-tier attack power buff, and its unique skill is a devastating 5-hit combo. Harold realizes Cedric is playing for keeps and could easily end him, but even with the odds stacked so heavily against him, he meets the challenge with a confident smile, saying that's exactly what he wants. Cass watches from the sidelines, a look of concern on its face. Harold then turns, offering a glowing hand to his partner, asking if Cass will fight alongside him. Cass eagerly accepts, declaring itself Haru's one and only partner. Dark energy swirls as Harold summons the jet-black shield. Cedric scoffs, asking if he truly intends to fight with only a shield. But Harold's expression is firm, his resolve unshaken. He shouts back that he is absolutely certain of his choice. Cedric grips his sword, acknowledging that the decision has been made. He warns the prince that he will not be holding back. Harold declares that with his partner by his side, he will seize victory. He steels himself, knowing he has no other choice but to win. With Monica as the referee, the duel for his future is about to begin. Cedric lunges forward, his speed far greater than Harold anticipated. But our boy raises his shield just in time, blocking the blow. The force of the impact sends Cedric stumbling back. Harold himself is surprised he managed to endure the strike. He smirks, realizing that after training with Alexandria, Cedric's attack feels almost slow. But his confidence is shattered in an instant. He looks up to see Cedric preparing his unique skill. The legendary 5-hit combo, Crimson Lotus Wild Dance. Harold grits his teeth, struggling to block the unending barrage. The shield begins to crack as Cedric's assault overwhelms him. He grits his teeth, straining against the final, crushing blow. But he roars back, refusing to be overwhelmed by the assault. Cedric stands firm, his expression shifting from confidence to surprise. He admits he never expected the prince to put up such a fight. But Harold's gaze remains unbroken, his resolve as strong as ever. Cass sees an opening, urging Haru to seize the moment. The little cat wants him to use their ultimate skill, Snatch, to end the fight. But Harold's answer is a firm no. He declares that he will not use that power in this duel, a skill that can instantly defeat an opponent after a successful block. He knows that using it would be far too cheap a victory, and so he vows to defeat Cedric without relying on Snatch. This is what he's been training for all along. Alexandria and Monica can only watch, their faces filled with worry. But Cedric unleashes another powerful flaming strike. A confident smirk crosses his face as he presses his assault. He unleashes his Crimson Lotus Severance, a devastating dual slash. But Harold manages to block the attack head-on. He quietly apologizes to his partner for his stubbornness, but Cass simply sighs, accepting its partner's selfish request. He catches his breath, thinking that Cass is truly the best partner he could ask for. Cedric roars, charging forward for another powerful strike, but Harold stands his ground, daring him to try and break his defense. The two warriors rush toward each other in a blur of motion. Their clash sends a shockwave through the courtyard. The impact sends Harold skidding back, but he holds his ground. Cedric can only stare in disbelief at the prince's resilience. But Harold's expression has changed. He's no longer just defending. He throws a powerful punch, catching Cedric completely off guard. The blow sends the overprotective brother flying across the ground. Harold catches his breath, the duel having taken everything out of him. He grits his teeth, pushing through the exhaustion. He stands over the fallen Cedric, the clear victor of the match. With a triumphant grin, he declares that they have won. Cass sits proudly atop his head, a silent testament to their teamwork. Cedric, however, tries to save face, claiming his talents are more political than physical. A likely story, but Alexandria isn't having it, telling her brother to stop being a sore loser. Her scolding leaves the overprotective brother completely flustered. With a heavy sigh, he finally concedes his loss. Harold smirks, knowing that just like in the game, Cedric is a sore loser with a soft spot for his sister. Cedric admits that Harold's final punch was surprisingly light. He warns that such a fighting style would be useless on a real battlefield, but Harold calmly states that he has no need for other weapons. Cedric scoffs, asking if he's being underestimated. Harold admits that he can't use a sword, a bow, or even magic, but he follows that confession with a confident smile. Because Alexandria is his sword, Monica is his bow, and Cass is his magic. As long as his shield can protect them, that's all that matters. Cedric's expression softens into a knowing, satisfied smile, and Harold reaffirms his vow to protect them all, no matter the cost. Alexandria and Monica smile, knowing he chose the shield to protect them. Cedric addresses the prince with a newfound respect. The sudden formality catches Harold completely off guard. Cedric bows deeply, entrusting his sister's happiness to Harold. Harold is left completely speechless by the gesture, but he quickly regains his composure, vowing to make her happy, a promise that earns him an enthusiastic hug from both women. A few days pass and the scene shifts to a grand academy. Harold is now attending classes, a new chapter of his life beginning, but it seems he's already exhausted by his new school life. He recalls the moment he learned his sister was engaged to the incompetent prince, a decision he couldn't overturn due to his family's contract with the crown. He knew Alexandria's only suitable match was royalty, but Prince Harold was another story. A boy known for his arrogance and cruelty to his inferiors. A reputation built on nothing, as he possessed no talent of his own. But Cedric now knows that was all just a clever act, because in their duel, Harold showed him his true resolve. He smiles, admitting that he was completely defeated by the prince. He tries to accept the outcome and offer his blessing to the happy couple. But his overprotective instincts immediately take over. But he finally relents, vowing to watch over the prince as his future brother-in-law, because if Harold ever proves unworthy, he'll use his family's full power to tear them apart. Back at the table, Alexandria tries to feed Harold herself, a gesture that leaves our boy completely flustered, telling her he can eat on his own. But she insists that this kind of closeness is important for an engaged couple. Monica then steps in, offering to feed the troubled prince in her lady's place. The two women begin to argue, with Harold caught in the middle of their affections. Meanwhile, Cass has already eaten its fill and passed out on the floor. But their squabble is interrupted by another maid, who apologizes for the intrusion. The group turns, surprised by the sudden, serious interruption. The maid tearfully explains that Prince Cartis has summoned him. Harold sighs, expecting a lecture about leaving his brother's faction, but he puts on a brave face, agreeing to the meeting immediately. Alexandria steps in, insisting she should join him as his fiancée. He smiles, realizing she's just trying to protect him from being scolded. He's completely overwhelmed by her kindness. She asks what's wrong, and he can only stammer that it's nothing. Monica leans in, whispering that he should be more direct with his feelings. The scene shifts as a grand door swings open. Inside, Prince Cartis waits with a less than welcoming expression. Cartis demands to know if Harold understands why he's been summoned. Harold and Alexandria stand firm, ready for the confrontation. His brother scoffs, asking what a useless prince can do without his faction's support. Harold wonders why Cartis would even want a useless person in his faction. Cartis explodes, shouting that they are brothers and accusing Harold of betrayal. But Harold calmly turns the question back on him. He asks why Cartis would bring Wilfred into the fold, knowing their mother despises him. He then asks if the queen is even aware of this little arrangement. Cartis is caught off guard, admitting he was going to tell her later. Harold declares that as long as Wilfred is involved, he will never support his brother. He firmly states he won't help a brother who accepts Wilfred. The declaration sends Cartis into a blind rage. Harold apologizes to Alexandria for the ugly scene and turns to leave. Cartis screams for them to stop, furious at being dismissed. But they're already gone, leaving the second prince to his tantrum. Harold's relief is cut short by a sudden familiar face. A young boy greets him with a cheerful wave, introducing himself as Raphael. Harold can only stare, completely stunned by this new arrival. Raphael explains he heard about the summons and came to check on him. The maid who called him realizes she's the source of the leak. Whoops, Raphael asks with a bright smile what business Cartis had with him. Harold is stunned, realizing how this must look to his furious brother. A sudden dawning realization hits the third prince. Cartis accuses him of betraying his own blood to side with Raphael. But Harold's expression remains completely calm and unfazed. He simply agrees, confirming his brother's worst fears. He sighs, already tired of being called a traitor. He turns to Alexandria, saying they have no reason to stay. Cartis shouts that if he's so determined, then he has his own plans. He vows that he won't let this go as the couple calmly departs. Raphael rushes over, calling out Harold's name. He cheerfully suggests that Harold should join his side now. Harold stammers, asking if Raphael is implying he doesn't like him. The boy just winks, saying at least he's better than Cartis, a fact that Harold internally admits isn't much of a compliment. Raphael then reminds him that his mother is the same as Cartis's. He asks with a knowing smile why Harold would bring that up. Harold immediately realizes he's said far too much. He remembers that Raphael's devotion to his mother is a key part of his character in the game, a memory of their mother, Princess Margaret, an imposing and powerful figure. Harold explains that his mother's poor treatment of both him and Cartis is a well-known fact. Raphael smiles, impressed by how observant Harold is. He suggests that since Harold isn't involved, there's no need for them to be enemies. The logic leaves Harold a little flustered. He can only stammer out an agreement, caught off guard. Raphael points out that with their recent falling out, Harold has no reason to be loyal to Cartis. Harold considers this, realizing Raphael has a point. After all, this whole mess started because Cartis brought Wilfred into his faction. He then remembers his brother's furious words from just a moment ago, and he realizes Cartis will absolutely seek revenge for this perceived betrayal. Raphael suggests that joining his faction is a viable option, but Harold hesitates, admitting that while he's grateful, Raphael can't understand his reluctance to accept. Because Harold knows something that Raphael doesn't. He remembers the game's ending, where Raphael and Wilfred eventually join forces, and that getting close to Raphael is a terrible idea. He realizes Raphael's true goal is to win the Chevalier family's support, and while avoiding his bad end is important, he can't bear the thought of anything happening to the women he protects. He tries to explain, insisting he's not trying to be distant. Raphael asks why he's refusing, wondering if Harold is also aiming for the throne, a suggestion that leaves Harold completely flabbergasted. He declares he wants no part in the succession war, telling Raphael to just ignore him. Raphael listens, his expression unreadable. He finally relents, agreeing to back off for now. but he leans in, offering his help anytime Harold needs it. After all, he says with a wink, they're brothers. The sudden kindness is too much for Harold to handle. Back at the training grounds, Alexandria insists he can still keep going. She cheerfully suggests another round, much to Harold's despair. His training has intensified fivefold since the duel was announced. He's been leveling up by continuously using the Casperling's power. The shield's unique skill has grown strong enough to defeat small monsters, and Alexandria is truly grateful for all his hard work, though she wishes he'd be a little less formal with her. But their quiet moment is interrupted by a summons from the king. The group is left wondering what this could be about. Monica speculates it's not about his brother. Probably. Harold decides he has to go, rushing off to the audience chamber. He arrives before the grand doors, ready to face his father. The king explains the true reason for this sudden summons. He announces that a delegation from the Valtian Holy Kingdom is on its way. Harold breathes a sigh of relief. It's not a lecture about his brother after all. But his relief is short-lived as he recognizes the name of the kingdom. The Valtian Holy Kingdom, the religious center of the entire world. And from that nation, 2 new heroines are set to arrive at the academy. The saintess, Christia Arcereno, and her loyal holy knight, Carla del Mino. He remembers Christia as the compassionate, saintly heroine at least. That's her public persona. And Carla, the fiery knight, known for a rather dramatic capture scene in the game. But Harold pushes the thoughts aside. He has more pressing matters to focus on. Cartis steps forward, asking if he's been summoned to greet the delegation. The king smiles, pleased by his son's quick thinking. He explains that while he'd normally ask Cartis or Raphael, this time the duty will fall to Wilfred. Harold breathes a sigh of relief, happy to be completely uninvolved. But Cartis protests, arguing that Wilfred is too young and inexperienced for such a task. The king asks if he truly believes the burden is too great. He explains that it's time for Wilfred to finally perform his royal duties. He then tells Cartis to support his younger brother, and Cartis reluctantly agrees. Harold watches, realizing this is all a political move by the king to solidify Wilfred's position. But Raphael speaks up, addressing the king directly. He suggests that if experience is the goal, Harold should join Wilfred. Harold immediately tries to refuse, insisting he's not suited for such an important task. The king strokes his chin, considering the idea. He admits that Raphael's suggestion has merit. Harold internally begs his brother to stop helping him, but Raphael just offers a confident wink, clearly enjoying himself. And so, the king makes his final decision. Harold and Wilfred will greet the delegation together, a decision that leaves Harold completely and utterly broken. Later, over a quiet cup of tea, the reality of the situation begins to sink in. Alexandria sighs, having heard the full story from Harold. Monica points out that with Cartis's support, Wilfred is in a much better position. Harold panics, realizing everyone will now compare him to his brother. He worries that this could jeopardize his engagement with Alexandria, and he vows to show them the tenacity of a cornered dog. He declares that he'll greet the delegation, but he can't do it alone. A small, knowing smile spreads across Alexandria's face. He nervously asks them to leave everything to him. She's eager to see who is the superior prince, Haru or Wilfred. And Monica agrees, ready to show the entire kingdom who's best. The scene shifts to the palace staff, where preparations for the delegation are already underway. But Harold worries about leaving such a delicate task to a 13-year-old. Wilfred, meanwhile, is convinced this is a disaster waiting to happen. He slams his hands down, furious that their kingdom will be seen as incompetent. He argues with the staff, his frustration boiling over. But Harold steps in, offering to lend a hand with the preparations. He finds an official meticulously folding linens. The man is stunned when the prince suggests he should help with the manual labor. But Harold's humble offer seems to have earned him some unexpected respect. He confidently tells the grateful official to leave this task to him. But his work is interrupted by Raphael, who seems to pop up everywhere these days. Harold humbly claims he's not doing anything special. But Raphael sees right through it, noting he's just directing from the sidelines. Harold explains that unlike Wilfred, who just yells at the staff, he knows that interfering directly would only cause more confusion. He then reveals he's already coordinated the entire schedule with the ministers, and with a sly smirk, he hints that there's more to his plan. He's even managed to secure the help of Alexandria's brother, Cedric, a revelation that leaves Raphael looking very, very interested. Raphael points out that Harold is clearly well-liked by the Chevalier family, a fact that catches the attention of a certain someone hiding around the corner. She's stunned to hear her nickname being used so casually, and she is clearly not happy about it. Raphael smiles, suggesting it's time for Harold to join his side. He promises he can make much better use of Harold's talents, Harold tries to politely refuse, reminding him he's already said no. But Raphael's smile only grows more intense, refusing to take no for an answer. He gets uncomfortably close, declaring that he wants Harold by his side. Thankfully, an official calls him away, giving Harold the perfect excuse to escape. Raphael lets out a cheerful sigh, clearly pleased with himself. He tells Harold to seriously consider his proposal before taking his leave. And so, the day of the delegation's arrival is finally here. Harold waits with a nervous smirk, thinking it's almost time. An official announces that the Valchian delegation has entered the capital. Wilfred turns to his brother, his expression tense. He explains that the Pope himself is with the delegation, urging them to work together. Harold, however, is internally cringing at his brother's over-the-top speech. He promptly slaps Wilfred's hand away, a rejection that leaves the other prince completely stunned. He tells his brother that he has no intention of helping him. The day finally arrives, and the Valchian delegation makes its grand entrance. Harold and Wilfred stand ready as the carriage is announced. The Pope himself has come to greet them. Wilfred steps forward, offering a formal welcome on behalf of the kingdom. Harold follows with a much less enthusiastic introduction, but he's confused when no one steps out to greet them. A voice from inside apologizes for the rudeness, ordering them not to approach. A stern-faced knight steps out, introducing herself as Carla del Mino, a command that immediately infuriates the young Prince Wilfred. Harold smirks, realizing this is exactly how Carla would act. He knows she's just fiercely loyal to her duty as a holy knight. A woman with her pride would never look down on them without reason. But a soft laugh from inside the carriage catches Carla off guard. A voice gently scolds the knight for her rudeness. A stunning woman in a holy veil steps out, telling the princes to apologize. Harold can only stare, completely thrown by this new development. He recognizes her as Christia Arcerino, the game's one and only saintess and the heroine with the absolute worst personality. She was a unique support character, specializing in recovery and buffs. She then turns to her knight, asking if she didn't hear her order to respect the princes. The knight can only stare back, her expression unreadable. She lowers her head, offering a stiff apology for her actions. Harold smirks, realizing her rigid attitude is exactly why people find her difficult. He knows Christia is just putting on a show, her personality just as rotten as he remembers. Wilfred, however, steps forward to play the part of the charming prince. Christia accepts his hand with a gentle, thankful smile. But Harold knows this was all a calculated test of their character. She then changes the subject, asking about the Pope's whereabouts. She offers a smug, insincere apology for his absence, and explains that he fell ill, so she came in his stead. And another man steps forward, introducing himself as Lorenzo, a name that sends Harold into a full-blown panic. He remembers this man as the mastermind behind a major incident in Christia's route, a plot that was supposed to happen much later in the game. Wilfred, however, is completely oblivious, playing the part of the perfect host. Christia thanks him with a smile as Harold and Carla trail behind them. The Holy Knight glances over at the third prince, a thoughtful look on her face. She quietly apologizes for her earlier behavior, telling him not to take it personally. Harold just shrugs, saying he's used to it by now. He sighs, finding her earnest personality almost too much to bear. Harold's eyes widen, a cold sweat breaking out on his brow. A hand grips a nearby pillar, cracking the stone under its pressure. It's Alexandria, wondering why he's suddenly so close to another woman. Carla asks what's wrong, but Harold just plays it off with a nervous smile. Later, the delegation kneels before the king in the throne room. The king welcomes them warmly after their long journey. Lorenzo offers his thanks, hoping to strengthen the bond between their nations. The king tells them to make themselves at home during their stay. Harold breathes a sigh of relief, thinking his duties are almost over. But a hand suddenly grabs his, belonging to the saintess herself. Wilfred offers to escort the saintess to her room, but Christia has other plans, a sly look in her eyes. She turns to Harold, asking if he would do her the honor instead, a request that leaves our boy completely stunned, and his fiancée is absolutely furious. Harold panics, knowing he's being watched by a very jealous Alexandria, but Christia turns on the charm, her eyes welling with tears. He reluctantly agrees, as Alexandria's rage literally cracks the wall behind them, and so he's forced to escort the saintess through the halls. He plays the part of the gracious host, a pained smile on his face. She then asks how he typically spends his days in the palace. He proudly explains that he's been training daily with his fiancée. Her feigned surprise catches Harold completely off guard. He gets a terrible feeling realizing he's walked right into a trap. The saintess offers a sly, knowing smile, her plan set in motion. She suggests that he should have a sparring match with her holy knight. Harold's face falls. He knew this was coming. He immediately refuses, insisting he's no match for a holy knight. But Wilfred chimes in, encouraging him to accept the honor. Christia grabs his hands, insisting she must see him in action. Defeated, Harold can only agree, telling her not to expect much. Christia beams, thanking him and suggesting they hold the match tomorrow. He finally shows the delegation to their rooms, hoping his duties are over. But the Saintess gets close, whispering a promise for later as Alexandria fumes in the background. The scene shifts to a grand party held in the delegation's honor. Harold and Alexandria make their entrance, though his fiancée looks less than pleased. Her grip on his arm is a silent, painful reminder of her jealousy. She reminds him that she is his fiancée, and he quickly promises he has eyes for no one else. But their tense moment is interrupted by another grand announcement. Harold is confused, wondering why Wilfred isn't the one escorting the guests of honor. Her grip tightens on his arm, a silent warning. Harold's eyes widen in sudden panic, because it's Raphael escorting the Saintess into the hall. Harold can't help but think his brother is the one with the wandering eye. Alexandria whispers that while others might stare at the Saintess, Haru would never. Her gaze then shifts, wondering if it's the holy knight who's caught his attention. He collapses internally, remembering that his fiancée is incredibly jealous. A personality trait that made her a fan favorite, with exactly 0 other heroines in the game. He quickly takes her hand, trying to reassure her with a flustered look. He stammers, trying to explain that he knows his words aren't enough. But he swears he would never look at another woman. Alexandria blushes, saying she believes him completely. But she admits she can't help feeling anxious. He takes her hand, telling her he just wanted her to know. The public display of affection leaves them both a flustered mess. They quickly try to walk it off, a silent, awkward understanding between them. From his throne, the king watches with a satisfied smile. He raises his glass, ready to make a toast. As Raphael and the Saintess join in, ready to celebrate the occasion, Raphael and the Saintess share a toast, while Carla stands guard nearby. The party continues, with guests mingling throughout the grand hall. But Harold's attention is stolen as he accidentally bumps into someone. He turns to see the holy knight, Carla, who asks if he's all right. She then offers a deep, formal apology for her earlier rudeness, a gesture that sends Harold into a full-blown panic. He quickly tells her not to worry about it and to raise her head. She looks up, offering a relieved smile and her thanks. She then formally introduces herself as Carla del Minho, Christia's personal guard, a level of formality that leaves our boy completely flustered. He awkwardly offers his hand, reintroducing himself. The holy knight looks at him, a little surprised by his humble demeanor. She then offers a bright smile, praising him for being different than the rumors suggest. The unexpected compliment leaves Harold a flustered, blushing mess. But their conversation is suddenly cut short. Alexandria appears, introducing herself as his fiancée with a very territorial smile. She then suggests that she and Carla should become friends. The holy knight seems happy to agree to the offer. She's grateful to have met such wonderful people as Harold and his fiancée, a sentiment that Alexandria is more than happy to hear. Harold is relieved, thinking his fiancée is taking this surprisingly well, but his relief is cut short by a voice whispering in his ear. It's the Saintess, Christia, getting uncomfortably close to our boy. She calls his name with a sly, knowing smile, a move that sends Alexandria into a silent, jealous rage. Harold tries to push her away, but she insists this is just friendly. But their little moment is suddenly interrupted. Wilfred steps in, offering to dance with the Saintess himself. Christia turns to the other prince with a thoughtful smile. She agrees, saying she could never refuse such a charming offer. But the Saintess looks on, completely unimpressed by the display. Harold stammers, trying to find the right words. He tells his brother not to hold back just because she's a saintess. Wilfred glares back, annoyed by the interruption. He then asks Christia if her attention is a sign of jealousy. She plays along, saying she'd be happy if that were the case. Harold apologizes for the scene and tries to lead Alexandria away, but his fiancée is still pouting, her displeasure clear. She reminds him that while his consideration is nice, he shouldn't forget who he's engaged to. He can only apologize again, completely overwhelmed by the situation. He's left reeling from the encounter, when he notices a small note slipped into his jacket. He reads it, realizing he's been played by the Saintess. As the music swells, Wilfred and Christia take to the dance floor. Alexandria comments that the painful display is finally over. Christia seems to notice their less than impressed applause. Harold nervously pulls out his handkerchief. As Alexandria asks if he's ever danced before, the question leaves our boy completely short-circuited. Monica chimes in with a sly smile, suggesting this is his chance to dance with her lady, a suggestion that sends Harold into a flustered panic. He's even more shocked to see Cass has joined the meddling. Monica asks if he dislikes this sort of thing, thinking he'd be pleased. Harold can only blush, completely overwhelmed by the situation. But Alexandria's smile is strained, asking if this is a challenge. Monica waves it off, asking if her lady is going to dance or not. Alexandria snaps back, furious that Monica is getting in the way. Harold tries to mediate, admitting he's never danced and would only embarrass her, but his hand is suddenly grabbed with a firm grip. Alexandria tells him not to worry, promising to lead him through the dance. He's completely overwhelmed by her dazzling presence. He finally musters his courage and offers his hand, and she accepts with a bright, overjoyed smile. He thinks back to the game, realizing this is a smile he never got to see. Their hands meet, sealing the moment, and so they take to the dance floor with Monica watching proudly from the side. He wonders if he's even dancing as she gracefully leads him. She praises his efforts, much to his flustered surprise. And soon he finds his rhythm, a genuine smile on his face. But his rhythm is broken by a clumsy misstep. He bumps into Alexandria's brother, who notes the mistake. Harold tries to play it off, but Alexandria just smiles, enjoying the moment. As the music ends, the hall fills with applause for the dancing couples. Monica watches them, completely moved by the sight. She praises their wonderful dance, much to Harold's embarrassment. Alexandria leans in, whispering that a wish of hers has just come true. Her heartfelt confession leaves Harold a blushing, happy mess. He can only think back on how rude he must have seemed earlier. But their quiet moment is interrupted by Lorenzo. He offers a polite apology for his earlier behavior, but Harold isn't buying it, finding the man far too persistent. Lorenzo just asks them not to spoil his fun. Thankfully, Carla appears to drag the troublesome man away. She offers a grateful wink for the timely distraction. Harold and Alexandria politely take their leave from the group. He sighs, feeling he's finally fulfilled his duties for the night. Lorenzo, meanwhile, just shrugs off the encounter with his friends, but as the couple turns to leave, a voice calls out Harold's name. It's the palace staff, all bowing in unison. They thank Harold, explaining that thanks to him, the day went smoothly. The sudden praise leaves Harold a flustered, blushing mess. He thinks to himself that he didn't really do anything to deserve this. But Monica and Alexandria smile, saying that those who know, know. Alexandria adds that she understands how much effort he put in for the delegation. The genuine recognition is almost too much for our boy to handle. The grateful staff finally takes their leave for the night. Alexandria holds his arm, suggesting it's finally time for them to go home. Harold can only let out a long, exhausted sigh of relief. The day of the duel arrives, and Harold is already in a state of despair. He knows he's facing Carla, a holy knight with top-tier physical stats. Cass tries to offer some comfort, but Harold can only force a nervous smile. He can't believe this is all happening, thanks to his ever-helpful brother Wilfred. But his sulking is interrupted by a familiar welcome voice. Alexandria has arrived, offering a cheerful good morning. Monica suggests they head to the training grounds to warm up. Harold can only offer a nervous agreement. The scene shifts to the royal training grounds, where Carla is already warming up, her movements a blur of terrifying speed. He watches as Carla draws her sword, her focus absolute. But she turns to him with a bright, cheerful smile. They shake hands, formally agreeing to the duel. She confidently declares that she will be the one to win. Harold just smiles, saying he has no intention of holding back. He remembers her as a pure and respectable heroine from the game. She waves a cheerful goodbye, saying she'll see him at the match. Her warm-up routine, however, is a little less than cheerful. Harold and Alexandria can only watch in horror at her overwhelming power. He realizes that in this world, skills are much more than just game mechanics. Alexandria watches, realizing the blood, sweat, and tears Carla must have shed to get this strong. But her intense gaze is noticed by the Holy Knight. Carla gets flustered, admitting that being stared at is a little embarrassing. Harold immediately panics, apologizing and explaining he was just stunned by her beautiful swordsmanship. The sudden, heartfelt compliment leaves Carla completely speechless. She stammers out a thank you, while Harold tries to play it cool. But Cass pops up, teasing him for being such a smooth talker, and a familiar, terrifying aura fills the air. Alexandria appears, asking if Haru has taken a liking to the Holy Knight, as Harold frantically denies it. She offers a chilling smile, asking him to explain exactly what's going on. Harold frantically tries to calm her down, his life literally flashing before his eyes. The scene shifts to the day of the duel. Harold realizes he had no time to prepare for this. He sees Wilfred and Christia have already arrived, and it seems everyone else has come to watch the show. Cartis announces that the pride of both kingdoms is at stake, a fact Harold never agreed to, as he just wanted to survive. He knows this is just a scheme by his brothers to humiliate him. But Carla doesn't care. She just wants to fight him at full power. But Harold's expression is calm. Their opinions don't matter. All he has to do is answer the challenge of her blade. Cartis scoffs, asking where his weapon is. Harold simply presents his shield, declaring it's the only one he needs. The Saintess can't help but let out a small, amused laugh. His brothers join in, mocking the idea that he'll just stand there and take her attacks. The taunts seem to bother Carla more than they do Harold. She tells him to ignore the crowd and fight her with everything he has. With a confident smile, our boy readily agrees. And with a final, condescending laugh, Cartis officially begins the duel. Carla lunges forward, her blade a blur of motion. But Harold meets the strike head-on, much to her surprise. The force of the impact sends the Holy Knight stumbling back. She smiles, impressed by his flawless defense. Harold seems a little taken aback by the compliment. He realizes that after defeating Cedric, he should have more confidence in himself. But Carla unleashes another, far more powerful strike. He grits his teeth, struggling to endure the overwhelming force. The blow sends him skidding back as she retracts her earlier statement. She declares that she's far stronger than Cedric and this fight is just beginning. He admits he's barely hanging on, knowing one mistake could be his last. But a wild grin spreads across his face as Carla leaps into the air for another devastating strike. He grits his teeth, the impact rattling him to his core. She smiles, realizing his defense is perfect. She'll have to wait for an opening. From the sidelines, Alexandria is completely stunned by his performance. Harold can only sweat, feeling the pressure of everyone's gaze. Carla admits she's grateful for this chance to face such a powerful opponent. He smirks, remembering her reputation in the game as a battle maniac. And she declares that he is worthy of facing her ultimate technique. She unleashes her ultimate technique, a spinning aerial assault. Harold's eyes widen. He recognizes this stance immediately. It's her strongest earth element skill, a move he's seen countless times in the game. She calls out his name, ready to end the duel in a single move. The 4 heavenly annihilation descends upon him. He blocks the first, second, and third strikes of the brutal combo. He grits his teeth, bracing for the final crushing blow. But to her complete and utter shock, her blade is stopped cold. The force of the block sends her skidding backward across the ground. He explains that he knew this attack pattern was coming, which is the only reason he could block it. Carla is completely stunned that her ultimate technique was so perfectly blocked. Exhausted, she collapses to her knees, her weapon clattering to the ground. She looks up, a dawning realization on her face. Harold explains that her skill has a major drawback, a brief moment of paralysis after use. He compliments her, calling her technique truly magnificent. But his own hand trembles, his grip on the shield finally failing. He collapses to the ground, admitting he can't even hold his shield anymore. With a weary smile, he declares that this is his limit. From the sidelines, his brothers and the Saintess can only watch in stunned silence. And so Carla declares that this duel is declared the victory of Carla del Minho by Prince Cartis. He shouts the verdict, a smug look on his face. The decision leaves Alexandria completely stunned. She immediately confronts Cartis, demanding an explanation. He scoffs, claiming Harold just hid behind his shield until he ran out of strength. Harold can only listen, knowing his brother is twisting the truth. Raphael then chimes in, reminding everyone this was a friendly match. A sentiment Harold thinks is a little too late to bring up now. But Carla herself steps forward, refusing to accept that outcome. A protest that Cartis dismisses with a condescending sigh. But the Saintess chimes in, telling Carla that's enough. She says that continuing this will only make Harold look pathetic. The words hit Carla like a physical blow. She explodes in fury, telling the Saintess to be quiet. She declares that Harold blocked her ultimate attack, asking how that could possibly be weak. Christia simply tells her knight to be silent. But Carla refuses, insisting that Harold is a strong man worthy of respect. But Harold speaks up from the ground, telling her to stop. He calls her foolish for acting so recklessly, knowing she could be punished for it. His unexpected concern leaves the Holy Knight completely speechless. He offers his hand, thanking her for the wonderful duel. His genuine respect leaves the Holy Knight completely flustered. She looks down, clutching her chest in acceptance. She then smiles, hoping for a rematch without any interference, a suggestion that Harold happily accepts. With the duel concluded, Carla takes her leave from the grounds. Harold turns to his companions, suggesting they depart as well. He leads them away, the day's drama finally over. But from the sidelines, the Saintess watches them go with a thoughtful smile. Later, the group sits down for tea, though Alexandria is clearly still sulking. Harold lets out a long sigh, completely drained from the day's events. But Alexandria offers a proud smile, praising his efforts in the duel. He can only laugh nervously, still not used to her praise. But their quiet moment is interrupted by an unexpected visitor. A man informs them that the chancellor wishes to speak with Harold. but Harold immediately refuses the summons. Alexandria is furious, asking how they dare summon him after mocking his duel. The man is taken aback, stammering out an apology for the disrespect. Harold considers the situation, while Alexandria's glare could melt steel. He knows refusing could trigger a bad end, but accepting is just as risky. But Harold finally relents, agreeing to the meeting. Alexandria asks if he's sure, but he just smiles. He knows if there's any danger to her, he'll have to stop it. With a casual wave, he tells them he'll be right back. He's led to a quiet, private chamber. A man with blonde hair greets him with a warm smile. Harold awkwardly confirms that this is the man who summoned him. The chancellor gestures for him to enter, welcoming him inside. He offers a polite bow, thanking the prince for his time, but Harold cuts him off, telling him to skip the pleasantries. The chancellor laughs, admitting that Harold has beaten him to the punch. He gestures for Harold to sit, ready to explain the real situation. He reveals the Valchian Holy Kingdom is split between the Pope's conservatives and his own reformist faction. And the saintess, Christia, is the key to tipping the scales, but she remains stubbornly neutral. So he arranged for her to join this very delegation, hoping to persuade her to join his side during her stay. Harold can only sigh, completely uninterested in this political mess. He asks if the chancellor wants his help, but the man has a slightly different idea in mind. He explains that when the time is right, he needs Harold to seduce the saintess. A request that sends Harold reeling as he recognizes this as a major event from the game. He remembers the game's plot, where Christia suddenly disappears. The entire kingdom searched for her, but she was never found. Wilfred and the other heroines tried to find her, but Harold got in their way. In truth, she was being held captive in a port town. And the mastermind behind it all was the very man sitting before him. Lorenzo. Back in the present, the chancellor asks for his cooperation. He promises the full support of the Holy Kingdom in return. He can secure Harold's position, erase his humiliation, and even win his mother's love. A truly tempting offer. Harold realizes the man has done his homework, targeting his old wounds. But our boy just smirks, ready to play the game his own way. With a confident smile, Harold agrees to the chancellor's twisted proposal. He shakes on it, knowing this is all to avoid his own bad end. But he'll be playing this game by his own rules. And with that, the dangerous meeting comes to a close. The next morning, Harold is already exhausted, dreading a visit to the Royal Academy. His daily routine of training and entertaining the delegation has left him completely drained. Monica reminds him that Alexandria is already waiting, a fact that sends our boy into a sudden panic. He dashes off, shouting that he needs to get changed immediately. The scene shifts to the grand gates of the Royal Academy. He arrives with Monica and Cass ready for his first day. But their arrival is interrupted by an official with a message. It's an invitation from a man named Salvatore to visit after the academy inspection. Harold's mind races. He knows this man uses the saintess to stage a coup in the game. Despite the danger, he calmly tells the man he'll be there. Monica smiles, assuring him she'll handle the troublesome details. With that settled, Harold tells Cass it's time for them to prepare. The scene shifts to an orientation, where the academy's open culture is explained to the new students. A guide then steps forward, offering to give them a tour of the campus. But Harold is already completely exhausted. School is rough, man. But the tour is interrupted as the group is led down another hall. The saintess speaks up, asking for a private moment. She gets uncomfortably close, asking if Harold will be the one to escort her. She adds that she can't possibly refuse his passionate gaze. Sure, let's call it that. She takes his hand, asking him to lead the way. Harold plays along, telling her to leave everything to him. He explains they're going somewhere they can be completely alone. He leads her to a secluded room at the end of the hall. He opens the door, suggesting they can talk for as long as they need. Christia is impressed, admitting she'll have to reevaluate her opinion of him. The door creaks open, revealing the room's occupants. Lorenzo greets him, saying he'll take it from here. Christia is completely stunned, realizing she's been led into a trap. Salvatore appears, explaining that he asked Harold to bring her. Lorenzo praises Harold's performance, promising his full support. Salvatore adds that for their plan to succeed, Harold must seize power. Lorenzo admits it won't be easy, telling him to wait for the right time. But Harold just offers a confident, knowing smirk. He tells them that unfortunately, that time will never come. Lorenzo is suddenly distracted by a loud cracking sound from the wall. The wall suddenly explodes inward, shattered by a single, powerful punch, and Monica steps through the rubble, demanding the conspirators surrender.